We're going to get into his soccer fandom, and we're going to talk about a really cool exhibit, the People's Game at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights downtown. And it is our man, Daniel Fuller, to talk soccer and stuff. What is up, Daniel?
Hey, how are you?
Better now. Great to hear your voice. It was great to see you over the weekend. What has the initial thoughts been for folks that have wandered in to see the exhibit up on the second floor?
Man, I don't know. It's cool. I think people are just happy to see, this combination of stories. I think people really like this mix of the international stories with things that hit closer to home. With soccer in the streets and the Fugees out in Clarkston, Georgia. I think that's been something that has really that people have brought up quite a bit.
When the center was piecing this together, they were trying to figure out how to do it, and they end up with you as a big old soccer fan, and you're like, no, I got this. I got this. How far back are we talking with the original idea of piecing this together up there for the exhibit?
Well, it started the initial idea started a year ago.
Okay.
And then, we're an old school not-for-profit, right? We're like not-for-profit museum where we have this big, beautiful building. We don't always have all the money that people think. So we rely on a lot of grants. So it was this funny thing of like, I've got the idea. I know what I want to do. I don't know if I can pay for it, but we'll see what's going to happen, And all of a sudden, about 3.5 months ago, the grants came in, and all of a sudden it was like walk, run, like just take off. I was howling, like sprinting towards the box, and it was just like this all of a sudden this like, we got to move. Like we've got so much to do in such a small amount of time, and all the groundwork had been laid, all the emails were written, all the like connections were made, but actually getting getting the actual stuff and bringing it here to Atlanta, that all started about 3.5 months ago.
When did your fandom of the sport start?
Oh, I mean, it's always been the case. I'm from upstate New York. I grew up with the kids across the street. Their parents were Ukrainian. They used to get VHS tapes sent from the Ukraine. Like we used to watch Ukrainian soccer, like they these wackos, these two brothers that I grew up with as like great friends. They used to on VHS tape record every World Cup match, and like after the World Cup was over, we'd like start over again. We do things to watch Premier League matches. Then I grew up with another kid that I grew up with. His father played professional soccer in Greece, and like soccer was always kind of. It was in a lot of ways for my friend group. It was the sport. American football wasn't the thing for us.
So I just have this envision of conversations involving like Shakhtar Donetsk and PAOK, instead of what's going on with the Buffalo Bills and losing to the Giants and the Jets and stuff.
Or even in a lot of cases, not even like the Premier. Everybody that we knew was like fans of Man United or Chelsea at that time, and it was just like, and we were over in the corner talking. We were of the soccer geeks. We were the soccer geeks.
You're the geekiest of the soccer geeks, and
exactly.
Look, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the part that makes it cool, because I mean, look, I treat my assignments and all of the stories that I go, it's like, okay, I got to go to this place to cover this thing. And so that's where the scarves kind of come into play. And then out of camera range, I've got about 350 hats that are a part of the whole thing. So for me, it's the scarves themselves tell the stories. The triple towel rack from Pier 1 that works out fantastically on this door and the door behind, and the double reinforced curtain rods back here so they don't fall down. It's all about stories, the people that you come across, man. That's what soccer, it doesn't matter who you follow. It's a great unifier, I would think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For this trip, I had the pleasure of went to 4 different countries, and I've got friends, I got friends that I barely speak the same language with, but like we became fast friends because of wanting to go to a match together, or just this like unifying. It was funny for this exhibition. It was so many emails, like an unbelievable amount of emails. And here's the amazing thing is, a lot, a lot of the emails that I was sending were in other languages, right? And here's the thing that I didn't realize is that Google Translate used to be terrible. And now you write your email, you plug it into Google Translate, you send it off, and then they write you back, and then you translate it into English, and then you respond. And I get to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I show up at Memorial Corinthians, the museum at Corinthians, at SE Corinthians, and I show up, and the director is like, oh, like so excited to see me, and a big hug, and we've been corresponding for 3 months, and big hug, and he's talking a mile a minute in Portuguese, and then he stops and he's like, wait, you don't speak Portuguese, do you? He's like, but those emails. And I was like, oh man, I should have let off in those emails, but I don't speak a word of what he thought I was fluent, and no, not the case.
We blame Google for fluency these days.
Yeah, man, but it's like we're like, I made a friend for life in that
exactly.
guy, because we have soccer in common. We have this love for this. We have this common love for this niche topic connected to the team that he has devoted his life to that team, starting as a fan and now working at the museum and being the steward of these trophies, these uniforms, these stories, right? And it's like he and I are a similar kind of person. We come from a very different part of the world, but we both love the stories.
So when it comes to the exhibit on the whole, how did you formulate what it was going to look like, the different topics, and hold yourself to the stories that are posted? Because I imagine there's a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor that didn't make it in.
Yeah.
How did you get the exhibit to look the way that it did, knowing that you probably had 98,000 ideas that you wanted to put in the space?
I quite literally have 3 more exhibitions ready to go. I mean, we're not a soccer specific museum, so unfortunately those won't necessarily materialize, but they could materialize in programming, or we have a web portal for exhibitions on our website where there's an exhibition that I really want to do that came out of this research, and I really want to make something more of it. It deserves to be told over and over again, and it's part of the exhibition through the audio dome. And so in the center of the exhibition, we built this big soccer ball that's open. It has an opening, and 4 people can sit in there. And on the outside walls, we have all these stories from Hong Kong, and from Germany, and from Ireland, and from the Basque Country in Spain. And those stories, in large part, are written by me, as the historian, as the curator. I worked with the folks that lent us the stuff. I worked with historians from those places, and I wrote those stories. But I wanted something in the middle of the space where people from the game and from all sides of the game could tell their own stories. So we built this giant soccer ball that you can sit inside of, and I think 4 people can sit inside, and a bunch of people outside. And it's 38 stories from 23 countries, I think it is. Wow. And it's people. There's just a speaker inside, and it's hooked up to an MP3 player. And I asked people very simply, I was like, just send me a voice memo. Just send me a voicemail. And I gave them a prompt, and I said, here's something that I would love to hear you talk about. If you want to talk about it, cool. If you don't, talk about whatever you want. Talk about whatever the game means to you. And I got stories. I mean, it ranges from like the owner of the Portland Timbers to the president of Bayern Munich, all the way to, Miles Robinson, former Atlanta United, now the U.S. national team, Carrie Davis, the first Black woman to represent England on the national team in England. And then it ranges all the way to, we got a IACT, which is an organization out of New York, and they run refugee camps in Mexico and Chad. And one thing that they found, spirits were really low. You have these kids that have made these incredible journeys all through South America and into Central America, and then up to Mexico, and then they're at the border, and everything is sort of, their whole life is transformed. And then all of a sudden, IACT hired soccer coaches and built fields and started providing jerseys. And these kids talk about in the audio dome about how a little bit of life went back to normal again. You know, it's amazing the connectivity of it all. I have this I in there I have Alive and Kicking, which is a soccer ball company from Europe that had moved from Europe to Africa. And a lot of companies, when they do that, they do it to cut wages. And this company pays the same exact amount that they paid in Europe. They pay at their factories in Africa. And I've got people from the factory, from the floor, from the line who sew these balls, and they talk about the importance of a company treating them fairly. And then on the weekends, getting to watch games from all around the world where their soccer balls that they sewed are in those matches, and just the pride of having put that out into the world. It's this amazing experience to sit in there and just listen to these voices for a little while.
For the exhibit that is out on the second floor,
yeah,
how many different clubs and people did you contact to get the jerseys and all of the materials, whether it was a still photograph or a banner? Or how many different folks are we talking here?
That was like of the folks that led things, that was, trying to do the math all of a sudden, it's like 30 something. It was between all of a sudden I'm blanking. I'm still recovering from the opening on Saturday night, but that was between 23 and 30 folks on the outside walls. Only everybody was so generous. There was only one team that I never heard back from, but everybody that I contacted was fully game to be part of this.
When you reach out and you make your initial contact,
yeah.
It's like, hey, I want to do this. What's their first response back in the back and forth? Obviously, they do end up cooperating and helping out and loaning something, but what's that initial response back when you send out that email saying, hey, we're doing this. I'd really like for X, Y, or Z to happen?
I think it's in a lot of ways, it's this funny thing, right? Where it's like a lot of people weren't expecting that email. And a lot of people, I think, if you read the captions on the walls, I'm not the best at sort of academic writing. I can do it when need be, but I kind of write how I talk. And I feel like there's a lot of, I kind of talk sometimes like a soccer fan, not necessarily like I get very enthusiastic, and I was very enthusiastic to borrow these things. I was very enthusiastic from the very start about getting to do this show, and I'd write to people and I'd say like, hey, like I have to have this. I have to, you guys have to be involved. Like, please, almost like pleading, like you got to. And everyone was like, all right, cool. Like, chill out a little bit, buddy. No, I don't know. I mean, everyone was game. And, when I went to the first trip that I took, my first stop was to Hamburg, and I went to St. Pauli, and they had I walk into the St. Pauli Museum, which is in the downstairs essentially of their stadium, of the military. And they had the New York Times article that had just come out about the center's expansion. Sitting on the table when I walked in. And I think for them, they just kept saying like how important it was for them to be seen in the same building as the King Papers. We have this partnership with the city and Morehouse, where we exhibit the Dr. Martin Luther King's personal archive of papers. And they were just like, we get to be in the same building. St. Pauli as a football club gets to say, what's important to us and what we believe in, and our terms of human rights here at the stadium, in directly upstairs from Dr. King's papers. I mean, that's quite a selling, that'll sell most people.
How many trips did you end up taking?
Not as many as I wish. But I'm enthusiastic in a lot of ways, and I'm not very good at sleep. So that first trip, I flew into Hamburg, went straight, dropped my bag at the hotel, which was 2 blocks from the stadium, went straight to the stadium, did a tour of the museum, went through the archive with the museum director, started picking things out immediately. Then I took a tour of the stadium while it was closed. Next day I went to a match. Wake up, I go to bed at 12 midnight. Wake up at 3:30 because I've got a cab to the airport to go to Dublin. The next morning, I meet with Bohemian, the team in Dublin. I meet with folks from their team. We talk about possibilities of what the exhibition could be and what they could lend. And then I go to a Bohemian match, and then I go to bed again. Wake up at 4 this time and catch a flight to Glasgow. And I go to the Scottish football, the national. What is it? Why am I blanking all of a sudden? The National Museum of Scottish Football. That's it. And I go see this incredible exhibition on the history of players from the Scottish Premier League that worked in the mines and sort of labor issues. The exhibition there was very in line with what our exhibition is here. And then I went to Sao Paulo a month later. And then there I went to 5 museums. There's in Sao Paulo alone, there's 5 soccer museums. There's the ones connected to the clubs, but then there's the big soccer museum at the former national stadium, and then took a side trip, a 55-minute drive gets you to Santos, where Pele played and lived, and there's the Pele Museum there. So I went to 6 soccer museums in 3 days in Brazil.
I do have 2 pieces specifically that I want to ask about, that I want to tell folks about, that are in this exhibit, but I'm going to push that back a second. Full disclosure, yes, proper hydration, absolutely, yes. We have a hydration break at halftime every show. My mother, full disclosure, she was a senior archivist for the state of Georgia.
Cool.
So I know about preservation and care and making sure that you handle things a certain way, that you're protected, so that the hands don't get any kind of grease or anything on anything that is of value, so it's preserved.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was it, considering that you made a handful of trips and then you had folks sending other things to you as a part of this exhibit? How difficult was it to manage proper care of these items in transit, because your hands, and you're not there to sit there and have every piece put into your hands into a hermetically sealed envelope or a Halliburton case and closed off so it doesn't get any sunlight? How hard was it to get everything there and make sure that it was properly preserved for presentation, that it will continue to be that way as their lives go forward for these particular pieces of history?
Let's just say that there was a range. there was boxes that arrived in our archival boxes with poly, with these poly sheets in between everything individually wrapped, and then there was boxes from teams that, let's just say, have a little more punk aesthetic to them, and it was just a box with a bunch of stuff thrown in it. There was a range. There was a big range, and and it's like, once it's here, we treat everything like it's a museum artifact. For the time that it's here, we've got the white gloves, and we've got once it's here, it's in good hands. But some of the places, I don't know, nothing arrived. Well, I shouldn't say that. One thing arrived broken. And I took a photo and sent it to the organization. They didn't realize that even with it, I said, "Oh no, look at this." And they said, "What's wrong with it?" I said, "It's broken." And they were like, "Oh, is it?" I said,
wow.
"Yeah." I think some of the things that, some of the things that we covet, or that we think are so cool, sometimes for some other museums or some other places or some other soccer clubs, it's there every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
They live with these things. And this is a total side note, but for a long time ago, before I started working here, I've always worked in art museums, and years ago, I was in Bolivia in La Paz, and I went into an art museum, and it was this hot and humid day, and while I was in the museum, it started raining, and they had all these artifacts, all these beautiful artifacts, and here everything has to be, you know, we control the humidity levels, and we have the AC in museums, and we're checking everything at all times to make sure that what we have is in proper conditions. I'm in this museum in Bolivia, and there's a window in one of the galleries, and the gallery guard has the window up, and it's raining directly into the gallery floor, into the museum floor. And I just walked up to him, and I was like, "Yeah, it's raining." He says, "Yeah." I said, "It's raining on the floor." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Shouldn't you close the window?" And he was like, "Who do you work for? I work here, you don't." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And it's that funny thing of like, I'm looking around, I'm like, everything's pristine, everything's cool. They don't need me to come from an American museum and tell them, like, they're doing just fine with the way that they're preserving this stuff.
I mean, a lot of folks have their systems, and I guess you just kind of have to sit there and go, "It's all right. That's your way to do it."
That's it.
Two stories that I wanted to get into. There were two pieces that you and I marveled over. Now, I marveled, and you put up with my questions about them. One has to do with your trip to St. Pauli.
Mhm.
I wanted to get there first, and I wanted you to tell this story. And yes, we're going into added time, and I don't care. The story about St. Pauli and the banner. When folks come into the exhibit, they see a banner from St. Pauli, and one of the initial reactions that you got to that banner, that story I thought was amazing.
Yeah, man, I mean, it's still so crazy to me. We had a group from FIFA. That FIFA is based in Miami for the run of the tournament, and a group of folks from FIFA came up for a conference on combating racism, and they had that panel here at the center, and we had this great group of people. We had referees and soccer journalists, and George Weah was there. It's, I mean, kind of can't beat it at all. And everyone's following around George, right? It's like he's this Pied Piper and everyone's behind him. And we're going around the exhibition. I'm giving him a tour, and the exhibition is not open yet. So we're like just talking about what it's going to look like and as it's finished. And I keep looking back, and I see this guy who's staring up at one of the banners that was one of the first things that we hung up. And he's just staring. He's just like looking up. And we give the tour a little bit, and I look back, and he's still there. And we give the tour a little bit, and I look back, and I'm like, what's this dude's, what's he doing? And he's wearing, like, part of me wondered, like, did he just wander in? Like, is he, and he's wearing a FIFA sport coat. So I'm like, okay, he's official. So when it all ends and everyone sort of steps out, I stopped and I was like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And he was just like, "What is this?" And I said, "It's a hand painted banner from St. Pauli." And he was like, "How did you get it?" And I said, "I borrowed it from the St. Pauli Museum. I went through the museum and we picked out some things." And he was like, "But how?" I said, "I don't know." I asked, and they said yes. And he was like, "Well, it's a recreation, right?" I said, "No, it's the original banner. It's from the museum. The original banner." He was like, "But how?" I was like, "Well, we already went over that, man." Like, what do you mean? I told you how. And he was like, "Do you know who painted it?" I said, "St. Pauli supporters." And he says, "I painted it. I painted it when I was 16. I got into an argument with my parents. I ran away from home in Switzerland, and I ran away from home, and I wound up in Hamburg, and I wound up with living in a punk house with all these kids that were into punk rock music." And he says, and they were all St. Pauli supporters. And he pulled out his supporters card, and he says, "Me and my friends painted this on the sidewalk before a match." And he was like, "We did that in 1986 when I was 16. And he's like, "I never come to the States. I'm only in Atlanta for one day. I didn't want to come because I just wanted to stay in Miami where I have all this work to do." And he was like, and I walk in, and the first thing I see is my youth like rushing back to me. And the two guys from we took a photo, and and it's him pointing up at the banner. I sent it to the two guys who run the St. Pauli Museum just this morning. I sent it to them, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys know this guy?" And they were like, "Gert, that's Gert." And it's like the same thing. They were like, "We haven't seen him in forever. We know that guy." It's like it's just this unbelievable small world.
And that's what soccer does, and that's part of the cool part of this whole thing. Once again, second floor up the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. It is the exhibit, The People's Game. Director of Curation Daniel Fuller, certified soccer fan, certified sicko soccer fan, hanging out with us here. We're in added time, and I don't care. Second story is a story that we have pursued, and it has to do with the Afghan Football Association and what Khalida Popal has done to try and have the Afghan Football Association recognized on the global stage. And you got some stuff from them, which I thought was absolutely amazing, but there's a story attached to that too.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing there was that I was telling you on Saturday night how I had been in contact with there's someone who they have that they get a lot of requests, and they have someone that helps out with sort of monitoring those requests. And that person in particular was incredibly generous right from the start. He felt like this was something that was right up their alley, and a good platform, a good place to tell their story. So he was putting me in touch with players. He was serving as a go-between with players. He was getting the stuff that we were requesting. And he also, it's kind of funny, it's like, man, I probably shouldn't tell this because he had the best idea for the exhibition, and it wound up not being able to happen. Just a timing thing. I'll tell you in person.
Okay.
Or come on down and take a tour of the
Yeah.
Come on down, come ask for me, and I'll tell any of your listeners. I'll tell them in person.
Yes.
This story. I'll tell them that this guy's great idea. But he was this go-between, and at one point he said to me, "Okay, everything's coming on a Friday. Like everything, you're gonna hear from everyone. You're gonna get a WhatsApp messages. You're gonna get a couple emails, and you're gonna get a message from FedEx. Everything's leaving on Friday." And then Friday comes, and I don't hear from anyone, like no one at all. I WhatsApp him, and he doesn't respond.
Uh-oh.
And then I WhatsApp him over the weekend, and it's getting a little closer to the exhibition opening, and some of the stuff, because when the team had to flee Afghanistan, you had players go to Norway. They went to Canada. They went around Europe. There was one player wound up in the U.S., New Zealand. So they fled to all over the place. So to get them sort of, and then to get them all sort of sending things on the same day, that's a big challenge in it, already, right? So I don't hear from anyone. So I text him again over the weekend, don't hear from him. And then on Monday, he was like, "Hey man, so, sorry about all that. Things were crazy after our court victory. And after all those years of trying to be recognized by FIFA again as a national team, they weren't allowed to be recognized as the national team because they didn't live in the same country. They weren't in Afghanistan. They couldn't play home matches in Afghanistan for very obvious reasons. At one point, FIFA tried to set up a national team refugee match, and they were like, "You're going to play it back in the Middle East, just not in Afghanistan." And they were like, "No, that's not going to work." FIFA wasn't understanding their situation,
Yeah.
and the danger that they were facing, and they weren't. And then after many years of court battles, I get a WhatsApp on a Monday morning that's like, "Hey, sorry, everything's still on its way. FIFA finally reversed their ruling, and the team's going to be a national team again. We're going to play. Everyone's relocating to. Everyone's got 4 days. We're relocating from all over the world. Everyone has to say goodbye to their families, pack up all their belongings, and move to New Zealand because we start training in 4 days." And everyone did. That's how much it meant to them. So like on a moments notice, just a phone call that FIFA reversed their decision. The importance of being a national team and being together was enough to make people just drop everything and move, for a lot of them, quite literally around the world, so that they could play soccer together again and represent their country.
Fantastic stuff. And that's barely scratches the surface. And I did that on purpose because I want folks to go see this exhibit because it is absolute gangbusters and you get lost in it. You literally do. You'll start down a wall and you literally are going station to station and club to club to find out about all these stories. The People's Game down at the National Center of Civil and Human Rights, Director of Curation, my friend Daniel Fuller. Thanks for coming on this morning and barely scratching the surface on this thing. You mentioned all the stuff that hasn't made it, and I know that that means that our director of videography, Nick Alifi, is going to want to come in and sit there and have you walk through the stuff that didn't make it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll like I said, ask for me. Anyone who wants to come in, ask for me at the front door. I will nerd out talking about these stories, talking soccer with anyone. This is the most fun I can imagine. I've never gotten to do a soccer exhibition at the art museums that I worked at previously. And this is a dream come true in a lot of ways.
And it gets to be there for the next year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll do, with things that didn't quite make the exhibition, we'll do some programming as well. We'll try and bring in some speakers and some filmmakers and bring in some players for conversations and panels and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Great to see you, my friend. Go get properly hydrated. Go get some brunch or something. Do you need a note to get back into class with Jill? You okay?
I'll sneak back in. I know all the side doors here.
Good deal. Don't be a stranger, my friend. We'll see you soon.